How do you feel about a United States Congress member marrying her own brother so he could get citizenship? And almost immediately after that, she was elected to the legislative body of the United States of America? From the word body, of course. And at one time, they tried to make a prostitute president here, just recently. A real prostitute. Not just by character or politically, no, a real one. They gave us an old man, senile dementia, I think that's what it's called, right? They tried to push through a black liar. Well, you remember, of course.
To cut the deficit by $4 trillion. Reducing waste and inefficiency in Medicare and Medicaid will largely fund this plan over time. This will slow the growth of healthcare costs for our families, our businesses, and our government. This plan will include a provision that will require us to introduce additional spending cuts if the savings we promised are not achieved.
So everything he just said refers to Obamacare, and it's a complete lie. Now the country must face the consequences. The Democrats did this, and now they're demanding that the Republicans fix it.
Then they pushed it through. Pete Buttigieg is the only one. The only positive thing you could say about him was that he was homosexual. Everything else was negative. Hillary Clinton, because she was a woman, although no one was really sure about that. Especially, in my opinion, especially Bill Clinton. And also because she was an alcoholic, of course. Now they've decided to shove this one down our throats. Well, look, they actually miscalculated. Why, in my
opinion, Nancy Mace's target going after you, is it just clickbait? There is a lot of hatred toward Muslims in this country, a lot of hatred toward black people, especially black women, and a lot of strong hatred toward immigrants. And that's why I fit that description. And of course, I was born in Somalia, which the president likes to mention, and I am also proud of my Somali heritage. And that's not something they can take away from me.
In fact, the United States is a country with an amazingly low level of hatred toward outsiders. No matter how many countries I've been to or lived in, well, except maybe Israel, and all the others, the dislike, fear, and some kind of suspicion toward outsiders is much, much higher. And especially toward all the previously mentioned categories. Toward black women, yes, everyone seems to feel hatred toward them. I don't know. Toward Muslims as well. Was it yo? Like, did yo make you say that? The fact that Trump and Make America Great Again hate all of them, well, okay, they hate them. And what about you? You're acting against United States interests. So, and most importantly, she claims that we have to show them, well, I mean us, that is, right, what? That's not true, and America is better than that. Now, she's pretty, of course, yes, eloquent, smart, and so charming in a scarf, not a hijab. The one that covers everything possible, like the face and so on. Well, like Obama is black, but only half, and not scary at all. So why be afraid of them? And she's also a sex symbol, so the candidate's name is Ilhan Omar. It turned out, a couple of small problems. First, she married her own brother. Well, probably effective, although who knows, right? So that he could get United States citizenship. Let's put it that way. Well, at the moment, there is no such 100% proof that you can put on the table. That brother Ilhan, meaning Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi, is the same Ahmed Saeed Elmi who was married to Ilhan Omar. But there is evidence that while being married to this very Ahmed, Ilhan listed a completely different person as her husband in her tax filings. So, also Ahmed, but Kiran, who exists, is known there and so on. It's already quite something, right? So, does that mean the future member of Congress was deceiving either the tax authorities or the immigration service?
the least. America in 2025 is the least racist country in world history, and I truly mean it. That's why everyone wants to come here. We don't have laws that discriminate against you, Ilhan Omar, or those who dress or act like you, right?
Even though you married your brother, what's the issue? That's one of them. I always go there, right?
We've been discussing things online for years, and now they're breaking into the mainstream. Well, Ilhan's marriage to her brother is finally breaking into the mainstream.
The best way to check if life is good or bad in a country is to look at the flow of migrants. If they're leaving the country, then they probably don't really like living there. If they're coming into the country, then it's good there, or at least better than where they left. Let's take Somalia. So Somalia and the United States of America, right? How many Americans have fled to Somalia? Well, if it's not zero, I think it's very close. And how many Somalis have fled to the United States of America? Yes, 150,000. 100, yes, gentlemen. Well, let's say Russia and the United States of America. The best place on the planet is Russia. I'm that so-called Russophobe or something like that. So, for one reason or another, about 3,000, that is, citizens of the United States of America live in Russia. There are various other reasons, but nevertheless, from 2000 to 2024, 300,000 citizens of the Russian Federation have moved to the United States and continue to live there. So the question is, where is it better to live? Where is there less oppression? Where is there more safety, freedom, and opportunity? Well, let's divide those 300,000 by 3,000. It's 100 times. It's 100 times better to live in the United States than in the Russian Federation. These aren't just words, these are numbers. And here President Trump is talking about that same charmer, Ilhan Omar.
Honestly, we don't need their people in our country telling us what to do. What are you talking about? I'm referring to Somalia, where the Congresswoman lectures everyone on the Constitution, but allegedly entered the country by marrying her brother. If that's true, she doesn't belong in Congress, and we should kick her the hell out of our country. What
do you mean by them?
Please clarify.
People from different countries that are unfriendly to us, and countries that have gone out of control themselves. Countries like Somalia, where there's practically no government, no army, all they do is kill each other. Then they come to our country and teach us how to run our country. We don't want them. You use...
Okay. As far as I know, this is the first time Trump has directly touched on the topic of Ilhan's marriage to her brother. This is a breakthrough, and I think you'll start seeing more about it. And if she committed federal illegal immigration fraud, well, yes, you can be kicked out of the country, but...
Ilhan's mischief doesn't stop there. 78 people from Somalia, all friends and sponsors of Ilhan, have been arrested on charges of embezzlement. Ready. Well, the minimum amount mentioned is $250 million from the Federal Child Nutrition Program. Let me repeat that again, $250 million from the Federal Child Nutrition Program. You might ask, how can this be done? It can be done. As it turned out, they set up fake food distribution points, and according to their records, they organized 200 fake food distribution points. What is a fake food distribution point? It's a certain place with something written on it, an address, and they would make reports for this address, for that address, and so on. Then they made fake lists of children, and the invoices for purchasing food were also fake. Naturally, money laundering was done through restaurants and various shell companies, and the money kept coming in. Right now, you're really going to be happy. This is such a disaster, it crept up unnoticed. They were going to the accounts of Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist organization based in Somalia. Not all 250 million, just a portion.
Did Minnesota taxpayers' money intended for hungry children end up in the hands of Somali terrorists? These allegations are related to a large-scale welfare fraud case initiated in Minnesota. Today, charges have already been brought against the 78th defendant. There are reports that some of the stolen money may have ended up with Al-Shabaab, the Somali terrorist group. President Trump says he plans to end deportation protection for around 700 Somali citizens in Minnesota, referring to Minnesota as the center of Somali gangs. What are the facts on the ground? Our investigative correspondent, Rich McHugh, is at the federal court in Minneapolis, Minnesota this evening. Rich, what have you found out?
Hello, Elizabeth. Well, we're now at the federal courthouse where just a few hours ago, 78 charges were handed down. This all ties to feeding our future, corruption, and a compromised nonprofit at the center of the fraud. We spoke with current and former federal sources, and they say that since 2019 billions have been stolen and that Minnesota is simply rife with fraud. And a lot of this money is going to Somalia, and some of the funds have gone to Al-Shabaab, a group linked to Al-Qaeda. But I want to explain this to the viewers again, because it's complicated. All of this is from Feeding Our Future, the largest COVID fraud. These criminals opened more than 200 federal child nutrition centers across Minnesota. These centers falsely claimed to feed thousands of children daily. They created fake attendance lists, forged invoices, and the government reimbursed them. Former State Senator David Gator witnessed this firsthand.
Rich is the Safari Warrior restaurant in downtown Minneapolis. This is the epicenter of the largest frauds and embezzlements in the area. The owner is now in federal prison. This restaurant, $115,001.
Donned Attraction 232 with services only in 2023. As of today, 86 people have been charged, and that number is growing. Federal authorities report to News Nation. 79 of them
are Somalis, and other numbers are also being reported. We were robbed, and they keep robbing us every minute, every second. We're suckers. We choose rulers to govern us. They wipe their feet on us and
walk all over us. 59% of those illegal immigrants receive food stamps, meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the United States government and American taxpayers aren't even
Americans. Come on in, dear, to our house. I'll feed you, give you something to drink, and put you to bed. And all of this isn't at my expense, but at the expense of my neighbors, who don't even realize how we're robbing them. Suckers, 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 and more suckers. But the ones in charge and pushing them around are definitely not suckers.
But thieves with F and grenades, not Saru. What the hell is going on in Minnesota with those Somalis? Well, I'll just say it because I'm a person of color, as they say, and I'm not going to join the chorus saying America isn't white and everyone is a person of color, and they're ruining it. No! It's those idiots. It's those evil people. They brought these people into our country and are giving them taxpayers' money, committing fraud. And all sorts of things. You see it on the screen, black people, they're doing the same thing, and all these other people are doing the same thing. And the problem is, in my personal opinion, it's not just about skin color. It's that you brought people into our country who don't share our values. I don't think it has to do with skin color or culture. And there are probably good Somalis who love the American dream, who do the right thing, who came here legally. And that's all. All of the above. And then you have the rest like this. Fraud. Fraud for $250 million. 250 million, and in English, not a word. 250 million.
Turn on the recording. Fraud for $250 million. Already 77 people. Many Somali immigrants have been accused of one of the largest taxpayer-funded scams in United States history. Minnesota, home to America's largest Somali community, has become the center of this large-scale pandemic-era scheme. The accused stole over $250 million meant to feed underprivileged children, rather than actually providing them food. Prosecutors say the money funded luxury homes, pricey cars, jewelry, overseas transfers, and a network of shell companies. The Department of Justice says the conspirators used fake invoices, meal data, and staged photos to make it seem like they distributed millions of fake meals. Sometimes more meals than a neighborhood's entire population. A federal jury found Emi Bak, the head of Feeding Our Future, and Salim Ahmed Saeed guilty of conspiracy, bribery, fraud, and money laundering. Federal officials say more arrests are expected.
Are possible. Bribery means that officials of Emily Soto were taking bribes to turn a blind eye to this public disaster. A restaurant with 16 seats then can't feed 16,000 children in a day? Well, it can't. Even 30. So it could if each group of 16 people stayed in the restaurant for 42 seconds and the restaurant worked 24 hours a day. But that's still...
Not all. Employees of the Anti-Fraud and National Security Department working in teams conducted more than 1,000 field inspections throughout the district. Minneapolis-St. Paul as part of this operation. What they discovered should shock all of America. Focusing on a list of more than 1,000 target cases involving over 900 people, our staff encountered blatant marriage fraud. Overstayed visas, people claiming to work for non-existent companies, fake documents, abuse of the H-1B and F-1 visa systems, and many other violations. During the operation, our officers discovered signs of fraud, non-compliance, or threats to public and national security. In almost half
of the cases surveyed, 50% that is, half of all the immigration cases checked turned out to be falsified. There are 80,000 Somalis living in Minnesota. There are only 150 across the country, but they have 80,000 there. And among them, they cheated. So the country, immigration, half the country, that is 40,000 people should theoretically be sent home. So, well, where to? To good Somalia from bad America? Deportation is actually a very complicated process, and mass deportation will face huge legal obstacles, problems, and maybe only if the United States immigration policy changes. But maybe this will be discussed now when drafting this presidential order on reverse migration, which we talked about with you a couple of days ago. Reverse migration, as Trump called it, is migration from the United States back. Where did they come from? Well, by the way, not only Somalia, also Ukraine.
Also stood out. We have identified alarming trends in the Unity for Ukraine program that would have raised serious concerns under other administrations. For example, when one person applies to sponsor more than 100 foreigners, or an organization sponsors hundreds. We continue to investigate these
cases. Here is one of those who looked the other way. Chief
of Police of Minneapolis. Another clip, another excerpt about this. Because this is what made me the angriest, as I mentioned. And this is Chief 105's response. Excerpt 105. Please, Lord, help me. This is the same scammer who's promoting those Somalis and all that. And after they uncovered all this corruption, the Minneapolis Police Department is going after them and making arrests. What was done properly on behalf of the voters, on behalf of all Minnesotans, the taxpayers? And here's what the chief said about it at the press conference. There's a whole crowd of Somalis behind him. One of them wrapped in a blanket. That idiot, a pig in a blanket. Play it. Play the clip. Stop. What's this we that we've become divided? Are we living in America? Why is she speaking a foreign language? At the press conference, where our chief is speaking. What is this? Look at that. This is a foreign country ruled by a white man. Here's the thing. This is abroad. I bet $1 million that at least half of them don't speak English properly. Either they don't speak it at all, or they speak broken English. They patrol the streets and respond to calls. I don't know English. You police officer, idiot, come here.
Quickly, turn it on. The Somali community here in Minneapolis has been very welcoming and has shown me love, and I appreciate that. Over the past 3 years, we have worked together trying to address some very serious problems that exist
in our
community. Sometimes we need to acknowledge the problems in our community, and we need the community's help to solve
them together. Look at the people in the background. They have no idea what he's saying. The guy right behind him is just like, as if he's reading Braille or something. He's just, oh, he can't even look at the camera. He's just, it's like if you go to Japan or somewhere, or to Mexico, and they're speaking a language you've never heard before. These people are looking at him like they've never heard English before. They have no idea what he's talking about. They don't even understand what he's saying. Look at those guys. Look at the one in the back. He looks like a black guy with an Escala hairstyle. They look like black people, but their hair is straight. This is wild. Look at the one in the back. I have no idea what's happening here.
And now to the cherry on top. The cherry on top, the cherry on top. To Minnesota Governor Tim Walsh, who was a candidate for United States Vice President in 2024 along with Kamala Harris. So it turned out that he was the only, so to speak, possible candidate for this position who was dumber than Kamala. She wanted someone next to whom she would shine with her intellect. And the only one who fit was him. He was definitely suitable for this purpose. He was always shouting that Ilhan Omar was
the future of America. Minnesota Governor Tim Walsh. Minnesota Governor Tim Walsh has been accused of silencing whistleblowers who tried to expose Somali fraud. So, more than 400 people have claimed that Governor Tim Walsh, during his vice presidential campaign, silenced and attacked whistleblowers who tried to stop Somali fraud. All across Minneapolis and
the state of Minnesota. More than 400 people working in various institutions in Minnesota have gone to the courts, the local parliament, their superiors, and the police, telling them that the country is being brazenly robbed. By order of the governor, they were persecuted, silenced, and intimidated. Let's listen to the one who was caught red-handed.
Let's listen to the one who was caught red-handed, the governor.
It's not helpful when the president, going beyond fraud, once again targets an entire community, trying to single out illegals who are fleeing civil war and living in Minnesota.
It's not helpful. At the same time, remember, it was this administration that cut our funding for counterterrorism and our federal anti-fraud programs. That's why we welcome support from the people. We welcome it, and I'll say that the United States prosecutors here have been incredible.
Helpful. This video is for select leaders of the Democratic Party in the state of Minnesota, including Governor Tim Walsh. Yes, we've had enough. Enough fraud, enough national disgrace, enough wasting our public funds. And now to find out that this hard-earned money ended up in an international terrorist organization in Somalia. That's a national
disgrace. By the way, here's an interesting podcast by a Somali woman who's outraged
by these accusations. A significant portion of those who have been charged are Somali Americans, which has sparked hateful debates and unfortunately led to the stereotyping of our broader
community. That is, only 50% of Somalis defended immigration, and you blame everyone. That's outrageous. That's not right. That means you are very bad, and you're President Trump.
Is just terrible. In every video about Somali fraud in Minnesota, and there are already quite a few, I always have a new clip with Ilhan Omar, clearly, openly, and proudly declaring that she represents the interests of Somalia. And my question is, at what point should we take her at her word and revoke this woman's citizenship, or at the very least, remove her from the United States House of Representatives? Ilhan Omar and the Somali community in Minnesota represent the biggest mistake of our immigration policy in the last 80 years. We brought people from the third world into our country who don't want to be Americans, but want to live in America. I'll say it again. They don't want to be Americans, but they want to live in America. The same values and cultures that failed to build Somalia into a functioning state are the same values and cultures that white liberals in Minnesota encourage them to preserve. They want to be Somali in every way, but they do it in the safety of Minnesota. And instead of integrating into our society and expecting the government to do what's best for its citizens, they expect the government to represent their interests, which is the improvement of Somalia Somalia. But Ilhan gets furious over Donald Trump canceling the temporary protected status for Somalis and vows to commit immigration fraud to protect them from
deportation. When the president tweets that he has the authority to cancel the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. Even little kids in 8th grade know that this is not the kind of authority the president has and can exercise. Another illegal action that our lawless president claims he is going to take is to revoke this status for only one state, which he does not have any authority to do. So for the approximately 300 people who are affected by this, who currently live in Minnesota and across the country, we see you and we are with you. We support you and we will do everything we can to make sure your status is resolved by March
2026. Look at how offended she is that the President of the United States dared to deport Somalis who are here illegally and engaging in massive fraud schemes back to Somalia, a place they supposedly love. That's because it's not in Somalia's interest to deport people who are stealing money from American taxpayers and sending it back to enrich Somalia. They will do whatever they think is best for Somalia, even if it's stealing. $350 million from funds meant for starving children, $500 million intended for children with autism, immigration fraud, so their cash cow keeps bringing in income. Ilhan Omar married her brother to get around immigration law. And she's offended that we look with suspicion at those who break our laws to enter the country, and then continues to break them by stealing money meant to help children and sending it back to where they supposedly fled from. How dare he? Donald Trump behaves so brazenly because, as she stated in the previous video, she believes that the United States government exists for the benefit of Somalis in Minnesota, in the interests of the country of Somalia. But in this next clip, she slips up and accidentally exposes the whole deception. Why do Somalis choose to live
in Minneapolis? But I want most Minnesotans to know this. Most of us Somalis who are here, as my friend Ali said yesterday, most of us. This was not the first place we came to when we arrived in the United States, but most of us chose Minnesota as our home because Minnesota is a special place for us. And Minnesotans are also very to us. When we moved from Arlington, Virginia, almost 30 years ago, none of us planned to move to another state. My brothers, sisters, and I, and our father, while he was alive, called Minnesota home because, as I said, Minnesota is special. And I know that almost every elected Somali Minnesotan didn't start out in Minnesota, but chose to come here, stay here, and build
families here, rather than as part of the Somali diaspora elsewhere. Instead of scattering across the United States, where they would have had to integrate and assimilate into American society, they chose to come together in Minneapolis to create an enclave that acts as a satellite state for Somalia, where they can accumulate political power and elect representatives like Ilhan Omar, who will do that. Work within the United States system to improve the situation.
Somalia. There's nothing wrong with loving the birch trees or palm trees or weeping willows you grew up with. I don't know. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But living here, having received all the rights and freedoms, having received help we never even dreamed of, to demand help from Somalia or Russia or Ukraine, these are the boiling points for Americans. And from a candidate for Secretary of State or Attorney General, well, of course, Ilhan had no right to become President of the United States, unless, of course, her birth certificate suddenly turns up in Hawaii. For example, instead of honor and popular love from the commie fascists of the United States Democratic Party, Ilhan Omar came under the scrutiny of the FBI and the Department of Justice. I really hope she'll be expelled, well, first kicked out of Congress, They probably can't deport her. Because she got it legally, supposedly legally. I don't know, maybe something will come up. Yeah, citizenship. Then she, or rather her brother.
Her own?
She used to bring him along, but she could be put in jail for this, for those schemes. I think they can. I hope they can. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that you adore us. And it's absolutely necessary to subscribe, and if you're already subscribed, then after subscribing, make sure to click, on the bell, hit that very bell, because I don't understand anything. But only 15% of the people who watch me regularly have actually done this. Also, leave comments. I want to know your thoughts. Your opinion. Maybe for 10 to 20 hours after the video comes out, I look through the comments and try to reply to them. But in any case, know that I read them if you leave them, let's say, within the first day after the video's released.